Hello. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great beginning to this beautiful day outside. The sun is shining, and hopefully, we're all being blessed with a lot of good things. Our country's going through a difficult time. We saw horrendous things happen in Washington, and we also mourn the passing of a Capitol police officer and another retired officer. And the flags in the Capitol are at half mast. They were lowered. And it signifies the pain that we feel when we lose someone who cares and is committed to our country and stands to defend it. It's painful for all of us. It's like our family, our people. But I was thinking about all the pain people are going through and the suffering. And I said, imagine if we each had an American flag or a flag outside our home. And every time we had pain, we were able to lower it to half staff, and people would be able to see, oh my gosh, this guy's going through a crisis. His child is sick. He's going through a depression. He lost his business. Someone in his family, he's getting divorced. There's a crisis with his child, etc., etc. How we would be able to then empathize and show empathy towards the person who's in pain, who's struggling. And the truth is that Judaism explains us that when you show empathy and care for someone who's in pain, it actually alleviates some of their pain and helps them get out of the suffering they're in. So in a certain sense, if we were able to have that half-staff flag as we have in Washington for the death of an officer or when something tragic happens for each one of us, so we could peer into the life of our friend and neighbor and community member and be able to call them or visit them and show that we are empathizing with their pain and helping to lift them up, how powerful it would be. And this week's Torah portion, a lot of this week's Torah portion, the next few portions is the basis of the Passover Seder. And as being the most commemorated and celebrated holiday in Judaism, which celebrates our redemption from exile, our exodus, which is really the beginning of and the strength for our exodus from all exiles. We read a lot of the text that we read in the Haggadah. And one of the texts is that at the beginning of the portion, Moses, at the end of last week's Torah portion, Moses cries out to God. He says, Lama hari oisalam azeh. Why did you do bad to these people? Since I came to Pharaoh, not only are they enslaved, but now Pharaoh made them make their own bricks and gave them the same quota, so they're working harder. Why? And at the beginning of this week's Torah portion, God tells Moses, first he says, listen, Moses, why are you questioning me? Where's your faith? But then he says, V'gam ani shamati etzakas b'nei Yisrael, nakas b'nei Yisrael. I also heard the pain of the Jewish people, Ve'eskar Esperisi, and I remember my covenant I made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that I will take them out. They will go out wealthier and stronger and healthier and happier than they went in. So all the commentaries ask, what does it mean when the Torah says, V'gam ani shamati? I also heard. What's the V'gam? God should have said, I heard. Why? And I also heard. And the commentaries say something so beautiful, so moving, so poignant, yet so important for us. They say God was saying, I also heard the cry of the Jewish people. You know who else heard the cry of the Jewish people? They themselves heard each other's cries. They empathized. They cared. They cried with each other. They stood up for each other in the depth of their slavery, of their misery. The Midrash tells us a fascinating story. One of the warped, terrible things that sadistic Pharaoh did was that he wanted to demoralize the Jews as much as he could. So what he did was he had the Jews have quotas of how much they had to build each day and in the pyramids. And then he had Jewish police watch them. And the Jewish police had to beat their own people and hurt their own people if they didn't finish their quota. And only if the Jewish police didn't beat them did they have Egyptian police on top of them. And with this, Pharaoh was trying to bring the Jewish people against each other and have them beat each other and fight and demoralize each other to have to be slaves forever for Pharaoh. And the Midrash tells us that the Jewish police said absolutely not. They risked getting beaten and hurt by the Egyptian police to protect their brothers. And later on, they merited to be from the 70 leaders that Moses took to guide him in leading the Jewish people and hearing the word of God. And that's the message that the Torah says, V'gam ani shamati. That's what we say in the Haggadah. God says, I also heard. You know when God hears our cry? You know when God hears our pain? When we hear each other's pain. When we are in sync, when we see the flag at the front of the house at half staff, and we say, you know, this guy's hurting. I'm listening. I'm going to see how I can help him through a divorce, him through the passing of a relative, her through the losing of her business, through the rebellion of a child. God says, when you hear the cry, then v'gam ani shamati, I also hear the cry. You know, one of my favorite stories is the story with the Mittler Rebbe, who was the second Chabad Rebbe. And one of the greatest things he was able to he was one of the greatest Chabad thinkers and wrote one of the deepest thoughts in Hasidic teachings. He would think and speak for hours words of Kabbalah and mysticism, etc., etc. And when he just got married, he lived by his father, the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe, he had a baby, and the baby was sleeping in the next room, and he was deeply engrossed in the middle of the night studying Torah, and his baby was crying, and he didn't hear it. He literally was so engrossed in his spirit. They said that when he was so engrossed in his Torah that he didn't hear his child, and his father came and tapped him on the shoulder and says, your child is crying. And the father says, someone who's engrossed in spirituality and holiness should always be able to hear the cry of a child. It was a message the Mittler Rebbe took to his life, that as engrossed as you are in your spirituality, in being a better human being, you need to hear the cry of others. The cry of a child doesn't just mean a literal child. It's a metaphor for the child, the hurt, the pain within each and every one of us. And I think that that's really the message to our country. And today, in the hurt and the pain and the strife, in the broken parts of each one of us that's crying out for someone, listen, empathize with me, hear my pain, hear what's bothering me, see that flag in front of my house, that's that half flag, crying for something that is hurting me so much. And the truth is that that's why Moses stands up to God and he says, God, why have you done this? And although God gets upset at him, the Rebbe speaks of this at length. Why does God put into the Torah Moses' cry to God? If it was wrong, why does he put it in? And the truth is, the Rebbe says it wasn't wrong, because Moses is the epitome of a leader, and a leader empathizes with his people. And when he sees people crying and people in pain and people hurting, his ear listens. It's such a moving message about, and it doesn't have to only be, people think you want to solve the problems of the whole world, of the whole country, of all our leaders, of all of the factions, but you got to start somewhere. You know where you start? You start with your neighbor, with your community member, with your family, with those who are closest to you. Listen to their pain. Remember what God says, V'gam ani shamati. I only hear after we hear each other. Don't talk over them. Listen to them. Empathize with them. Hug them. If it's not physically, virtually embrace them, their pain, and help them get through it. God bless you, and may God bless all of us, that with the love and the care and the generosity we have to others, God should hear the cumulative cry and pain of his people, of his nation, of his community, of his world, and bring an end to strife, to the pandemic, to animosity, to hate. May it happen speedily in our days with the ultimate redemption. God bless you. Have a great day.